Welcome to the Stuttering Awareness and Mental Wellbeing campaign. I'm joined by Michael OShea. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Valerie. Nice to meet you.
Michael, you were a person who were challenged with a stutter.
Yes, since the age of 4. Started school, went to the nuns, never saw a nun in my life. And the first day in school I ran away. And there was no mobile phones or anything then, so half the school was looking for me, and I ran to my grandmother's house, which was 2 miles away. And basically they found me about lunchtime, my mother, and went to school the next day again, basically done the same thing. When my mother stayed for maybe an hour, and when she went, the first chance I got, I done the same thing again. And on the third day, I done the same thing again, but this time the Mother Superior was waiting at the back door. She dragged me over to her school, which was adjacent to the nursery school, as we call it now, and she gave me a severe beating. And I wet my clothes and basically sat in the clothes all day, and from that went home. Didn't speak for 3 months, and when I started speaking again, I stuttered out of control. Now, there was a history of stuttering in my family, but that was the trigger. It was many years later I found out that it was trauma that was compounded. When I left school, in those days I went to that school and it was mixed. Boys and girls were in infants. There was no such thing as small infants and big infants, it was just infants. And then you progressed, and I progressed onto a mixed school again, but in a different parish, because we got a new house. And was there for 3 years, and my teacher was out for 4 days. She was sick, and I had to go into the principal's class, who had 5th and 6th class. And all that I knew about the principal is that he lost his temper very easily, shouted and screamed because you could hear him all over the school. And on the second day he asked me a question and I couldn't say it. And he shouted at me, spit it out, spit it out. Maybe looking back on it, it was his way of getting me to speak, but I couldn't say it. And he said it again, and he lost his temper and said, hold out your hand, and I did. And he had a 3 metre or 1 metre stick with a brass ferrule on the end of it, and he whished it back, and of course I pulled back the first time. And he tried again, so with his left hand he got my hand like that and brought it down on my flesh. Still have the mark, it has moved a bit, but he broke the skin and it started to bleed. And basically I was so terrified I didn't run that day. I sat through the class. When I went home, you were probably too young to know what iodine was, but they wrapped it in iodine in a cloth, and the next day I had to go to the doctor because my hand swelled up massively, and it looked like the doctor reported him to the authorities, and he was only in that school a short time after that. But that's how it started.
Before we get to the trauma of what happened, Michael, what was it about school that just wasn't for you? Like, was it something that you just didn't like going to every day? Why did you feel the cue to run from it?
I think it was the nun. When I look back on the nun, I never saw a nun in my life. I lived in the country, and all that I saw was this big being that you saw a face, and you saw a little white thing, a triangle. And that's all you saw. Now, I'm not saying that the nun that was teaching me was a bad person. No, definitely not. But the Mother Superior was a bad person. Because when I launched the book in 2007, a lot of people who were in that class on that day remembered it.
Well, of course they would, because something like this obviously clearly haunts you to this day. A child will always remember when they were hurt by somebody, and for you that day you weren't only hurt, you were physically hurt, and you were probably mentally hurt because there was a class full of people watching you as well, Michael.
Yeah, it's trauma, and it was at the launch of the book many years later that they said it, that they said that they gave me their hankies because I was crying and all that. I mean, to say, like, if they remembered it, what effect had it on me? But like, what saved me through stuttering through my whole life was overcompensating. I overcompensated in everything. Like, I was good at sport, I was good academically, and I felt normal. That's the only thing that made me feel normal. I never felt normal when I stuttered, because I saw the reaction of people, the response of people to me, because they were responding to me, how I responded to myself, and how I was responding with blocking and pushing a word through. Like, they responded through their embarrassment. They didn't understand. And this is what this campaign is all about. It's awareness. It's not only a physical problem of the speech blocking, it's mentally as well, the psychological impact of it.
After the incident in the school and where you obviously were hurt, Michael, you completely shut down after that?
Completely shut down verbally, but made sure, like that beating of the teacher, the principal, that message to me was quite clear, that if I stuttered in front of adults, it was going to end up in physical pain. So I had to be very, very careful and very skeptical. And I developed a huge fear of hierarchy. People who I perceived were superior to me. People who were teachers, doctors, Gardaí, dentists. I couldn't go to a doctor or a dentist without a note. A note for the receptionist, a note for the doctor, telling the doctor what was wrong with me through a note. It was a crazy way to live, but that's how I coped. And people who stutter develop coping mechanisms very, very early in life, and it follows us through.
Michael, when you were in the new school, something happened, you came across a bully and something changed for you.
Yeah, when I left national school, I went to the local tech. I didn't go to secondary school. And on the first day, nothing happened because I didn't speak to nobody. And I was only finding my feet. Luckily enough, there was about 7 out of my class who went to that school as well, but I was in with a class of 25. And 18 of those people I've never met before. But on the second day, the school bully noticed something, and he started to pick on me. Now, I was 13 years of age then. He was 16. Now, I was a big lad for 13, and he picked on me. Now, I'm not that type of person, but instinctively, I knew that I needed to react to this and clean it up. So he got a bloody nose, I got a bloody nose. We ended up in the principal's office, and the two of us got suspended for 2 days on my second day in the tech. So, but that sent out a message that you didn't mess with me. And ever after that, I don't remember ever being bullied in school again. Now, okay, in the sports field, I could call for a ball and I could stutter, and somebody could say to me, "You're stuttering so-and-so." But I wouldn't go after that person on the first ball or the second ball. I'd wait until the third ball and I'd wipe them out. And the people got the message.
But that was your coping mechanism?
That was a coping mechanism, yeah. Instinctive. That's how it coped.
When it comes to having looked back at the triggers, right, did anything ever happen to teachers that were after causing you physical harm back in the day, Michael?
Not at that time. I mean, to say, like, you're talking about, I started school in 1959. Right, if you went home and told your mother, "I got a slap off the teacher," your mother would say, "Well, the teacher didn't slap you for nothing." That was the attitude then. And I mean to say, like, that's the period of life that I went through. I don't think that teachers were nasty, only for those two. Those were the only two nasty teachers I've ever met. But you see, there's a certain amount of approach avoidance conflicts go on between the teacher and the person who stutters. The teacher's there teaching them, and they don't know whether to ask the pupil a question, because they don't know if it hurts us if we stutter. They don't know if we're embarrassed, and they can see the embarrassment in our faces, and they know that we hold back. But there's a certain amount of approach avoidance conflicts on both sides. So like, that's what the Stuttering Awareness campaign is all about. It's awareness of how to respond to people who stutter, and it's up to us as well, people who stutter, to explain that and to have a conversation. That's the point, to have a conversation about it. 70 million people in the world stutter. 1% of 7.4 billion in the world stutter.
And this is the importance of the campaign, but I was always told, and you can correct me now if I'm wrong, that if you were ever chatting to someone to stutter, you don't try and finish their sentence.
Yeah.
You know, these are the things you'd have been told. Is that correct? Should we be told something else, Michael?
No, that is absolutely correct, because like when I was in school and the teacher said slow down and all of this stuff, you know, I was saying, my younger sister was 3 years younger than me, and I was saying, why are they not telling my sister to slow down?
Right.
You know, I was taken out of school when I was about 8 or 9 on speech therapy. Why was I the only one in the school that got a half day of a Thursday every second week to go to speech therapy? The feeling of difference. The feeling of difference is massive. And it leads on as you grow and you grow into it and you grow older, the feeling of difference, the feeling of shame. The feeling of shame. That's associated as you go into adolescence and adulthood, and this is what the mental well-being is about. The feelings that generate all of this, the feelings of difference, the feelings of shame, and the feelings of anxiety and stress and fear. The fear of not being able to say your name, the fear of not being able to verbally express yourself. That's the psychological part.
And I think for a lot of people, maybe it's lack of education on their side, that they don't know how to deal with someone that stutters, or they don't know how to respond, or maybe they are trying to finish your sentence, and that's probably the worst thing that someone could do, is tell you hurry up, or tell you slow down, or tell you try and finish your sentence. Like, you don't need that.
Yeah. But again, that's getting back to the campaign, awareness, educating people, educating parents. I have parents who are ringing me who have a child of 2 or 3, and the child is starting to repeat words and they think it's a stutter. It's not. They're learning to verbalize themselves. And the best thing to do if you have a child that age is just to get down on your hands and knees on their level, good eye contact, and not to tell them to slow down, not to tell them take a breath, because they may have brothers and sisters, and why isn't mommy and daddy telling Sean or Philomena to slow down? Why is it me? That feeling of difference, bang, can happen.
When did it all change for you? What was the difference that made you get back on track?
As soon as I started working, I spent serious time and serious money trying to find a cure for my stutter. There's no cure out there, okay? But I suppose the one thing was my grandmother. I was her eldest grandchild. When she died, I was 33 years of age, and I wasn't able to say a prayer at her funeral. But because of overcompensation and how I looked at life, I knew nature taking its course, that my parents were going to pass before I did. I didn't want to experience the pain that I had not being able to express to her through prayer, whatever it was, and it really, really hurt me. And I didn't want to experience that pain again. And it was pain. That's the one word, pain. So I heard about a course. I checked it out now because I was skeptical. I was the most skeptical person that done that course, because I was looking for, because I saw that people, how I looked at myself was that people saw me, I was prepared to pay anything to find a cure, and they saw me as easy money. And it's not that I'd been left down, they didn't know what to do. But this course, I done it. I told my wife I'll be back Friday. It was a 3-day course. I told her I'd be back Friday evening, started on a Thursday morning. You had to pay your money on Friday at lunchtime. And I said I'd be home Friday evening. And the game plan was that I would learn as much as I could on Wednesday night and Friday night, wouldn't pay my money, and I'd work on what I'd learned. That was the plan. But on Thursday morning of the course, there was the course instructor there, he's a man from Carlow, Michael Meany was his name. And I saw him on the floor. And immediately I said, if this fella can do this, why can't I? And the rest is history.
I mean, your story is a difficult one, Michael, and it's an emotional one because yours was triggered.
Yeah. But I mean to say, like, there can be a trigger even in adulthood. I dealt with a lady not so long ago, 42 years of age, and she was a supervisor in the factory, and there was an argument on the floor of the factory one morning at 8:30, and one of the employees attacked her. Bang. The woman has stuttered since. So it can happen. Car accidents, stress, strokes. You know, I've the utmost respect for professional speech and language therapists, because speech and language therapists don't deal with stuttering that much. But look at what all of the other stuff that they deal with. Stress, car accidents, strokes. you know. And that's what we want to do with the campaign as well, is to bring the self-help community and the professional community together, to work together, not work down one way and one of them is going right and the other is going left. Just the awareness that if we can combine it and work together, we can all work together and help people.
You decided to write a book. Tell us about the book.
That's right. In 2007, started the book in 2006, researched it, and because I was so good at writing and explaining things through writing, it only took me probably 6 months to write it. Launched it in 2007, sold over 45,000 copies, brought myself and my wife Monica around the world twice. Opened doors for me were unbelievable. Do talks in universities and to other support groups throughout the world, and basically that's what ended up here, and started the National Stuttering Awareness Day in Ireland in 2007 as well. The day the book was launched, that was a huge success. Ran that for 10 years, and basically, as I said, all the rest is history.
Michael, you wrote a book and you said the rest was history, but it wasn't, because you started Speak Soon Communications. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, the byproduct of the book was Speak Soon Communications. So I started to run workshops where I invited people in to educate them about the psychological and the physical part of stuttering. You see, psychological, we learn things we need to unlearn. So basically you're replacing old habits with new habits. So I became very good at that, met people who could educate me on that, paid people to educate me on it because I wanted to do it right, and ran that, Speak Soon Communications. But also my main income came from, I started work as a carpenter. I could go to university, but my parents didn't have the money. I could have gone on a scholarship or on a sports scholarship to Villanova University, but how would I exist in America? I wasn't able to cope with my speech at home. How would I do it in America? So anyway, ended up as a carpenter, served my time as an apprentice, was out of my time on the Wednesday, and because of, you know, I was smart, I knew how the world worked, I was streetwise, so I became self-employed on the Thursday 45 years ago, and here I am today, and was able to do things, but overcompensation in everything. I made sure that there was nothing was left to chance, because I would have to explain it.
Before we let you go, any last minute advice for anyone that may be challenged with a stutter?
Be open, be honest with yourself. If it's hurting you, do something about it. And there's all over the world now, and especially with social media, one thing about the pandemic is, for people who stutter, it has opened up a whole new world to them through Zoom, where people can contact each other worldwide. Support groups, all of that is opening up, and like that's what the awareness about stuttering is all about as well. We have an opportunity that we may never have again to get this message out worldwide. Like this message that we're talking about here isn't just for Ireland. We're going to develop it and we're going to move it out and advise other stuttering organisations around the world. If we can do it, 3 people in Ireland, Jamie Googan, Michael Ryan and Michael OShea, can do this in our small country, why can't you do it in yours? And to bring that community together.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, thank you. Enjoyed it.